Welcome to my advanced TinkerCAD modeling instructional series. In this episode, we're going to create complex shapes using SVG vectors. So much time can be saved by creating vector paths and importing the shapes into TinkerCAD. Here's a few parts I made using this vectoring technique. Some of this can be done using TinkerCAD's custom shape tool, but you're limited to only a few drag points, and you can never get exactly what you want. Here, I'll walk you through making these two donor parts from the Hasegawa half-track. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. We're going to be creating complex shapes using SVG vectors. These are going to be shapes that you can maybe do in TinkerCAD with a lot of extra work, or you can do them really easily using third-party plugins. I am using CorelDRAW. You can do the same vectoring technique with Inkscape, Illustrator. There's a couple other freeware programs that are out there you can use, but today I am most proficient in Corel. I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. So I'm going to make a couple samples for you. We're going to start out really easily by making this shape. This, I believe, is from a Hasegawa half-track. It's got some straight lines, angled lines. We've got a curve up this way, a circle in the middle, and a ridge. And by the way, this is the last of my 8-part tutorial series. I'm going to start this with drawing a square. This picture was a little bit off kilter, a little bit angled, so I'm going to just use a little bit of artistic freedom here to make the lines straight. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just using my Bezier line tool, and I'm going to follow this curve. It comes up at this angle and then it finishes at that node. And you can spend as much or as little time as you want drawing out your vectors. There is a circle. I'm going to go ahead and move this off by itself. One of the big features I see here is there's a line, there's a perimeter. So I'm going to Control-C, Control-V, duplicate this line. I am going to turn its stroke up. A point stroke looks to be about right. So this is going to be our outside edge. Turn this into an object. Convert outline to object. I am going to turn the stroke to a hairline stroke, and I'm going to turn off its fill. So now we have this as our stroke. I'm going to shrink it so that it lives inside of the other piece. We are going to copy these and do a new project. And you've seen me do this in some of my other tutorials. I think episodes 1 and 2 used some SVG vectors. We're going to copy these. We're going to save these out. Super important to save them as SVG data. Let's open up a new project in TinkerCAD, and we are going to import those two shapes we just made. Shape 1, imported as artboard, and shape 2. Here we are. Here is our basic building blocks for making this happen. This one is pretty simple. All I'm going to do is reduce this down. This looks like it's about maybe that thick. I'm going to grab both objects. I'm going to go over to my align feature and put them together with one click. And already That is almost our finished part. This is just a really simple example. I'll go a little bit more complex in a little bit, but let me finish this. Looks like there's 2 rods that are over here. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are saying, oh, I can do that natively in TinkerCAD just using their tools. Yeah, you could, but this is just a really small starter example of this. Let's do something a little more complex. Let's do this piece. This piece doesn't have very many curvy shapes. There's one little kind of curvy thing right here, but this is straight lines. And we're using the same principles. Drawing out our outlines and manipulating them until we see what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just this corner here. That's a raised piece, isn't it? Well, you know what? I'm going to draw this whole thing out. I'm imagining what this looks like without some of these shapes. So this is a frame that looks like it goes to about here. And let's draw these interior boxes. Alright, so I've got a big box here in the middle. There's a flat plane there, so I'm going to do that natively in TinkerCAD, but I am going to take this center out completely. And yeah, you know what? I think I might draw this center box. And then that'll be chopped in TinkerCAD. And then we've got this weird thing. So I'm going to continue this vector. And I don't have this model kit, so I don't know exactly what this does, but it looks like it's doing this. It's coming down. Does this kind of thing. Comes over here. Flattens out. Here's how I've got this piece dissected. I've got it in one main frame, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. And just like we did before, you want to import these. You want to save them out as SVG vectors and import them one at a time. And the really cool thing is they import in the same position that you drew them out for in your artboard. So that's frame number 3. And you just keep going. Frame 4. Frame 5. I realized I needed a 6th frame piece, so I do this off camera. All right, let's go ahead and start aligning things. The first thing I want to do is look up at my reference photos, and I'm going to make this kind of skinny, about there. All right, let's one at a time. We're going to start positioning these guys. So I'm going to grab him, hold down Shift and select him, and we're going to bring him up where he needs to be. I'm going to align to this, so I'm going to center it and then bring it up to the top. I'm going to zoom into this spot, and I'm making a point not to raise anything up. I want everything to be level with the plane, so I'm not repositioning any of that. And I'm going to draw out, there's a plane that lives here. And I think I might make this just a little bit taller. I'm going to turn off my snap grid so it doesn't snap to 1 millimeter. I'm going to raise this up Yep, to about there. That means I want to raise this up a tiny touch. And it looks like that's not the full length on this piece, so I'm going to grab him and just bring him up to the surface. Embed him. Maybe a tiny touch taller. Boink. This plane comes down to about there. I'm going to grab my next couple pieces, which is this guy and this guy. Going to bring him up. And these live here. And remember, everything is to scale, so I don't need to worry about scaling these things. I just have to reduce their extrusion. And I can also make sure everything is center by control shifting, selecting those two, shift this, align tool, click my main frame, and we're going to center it right into the middle. That's all we want. And it looks like this dude lives below. This lives above. This one's really flat. It's flatter than that plane. And then this guy kind of touches him at the top. Like this. And he's a little bit shorter than the frame there. Gonna make an adjustment so these guys touch. And there's that. Let's go ahead and make everything one color. A little bit easier to work with this when it's one color. And this dude lives kind of far down here at the bottom. And I'm just adjusting as I go. This needs to be a little taller. Actually, before I make that tall, I'm going to select this also. Just stretch it up a tiny bit more. This guy. Align tool. Select my frame. Put him in the middle. Shrink him down below. And then we've got this one last piece. And he's a weird thing, so yeah, we're going to have a little bit of work to do with this piece, but for now we are going to make him live where he needs to live, which is kind of at the top of this. Okay, here's our basic building block ready to detail. But you see how fast that was just by importing those SVG vectors. I've got this basic shape. I didn't have to draw rectangles and do any subtractive processes. This is where we are that fast. I can see that there's some raised portions of this piece. So I'm going to duplicate him, Control D. I'm going to make this a different color. Let's do it in green. And I'm going to bring out a subtractive box. And it looks to me, drop him a little. So it looks to me like all that raised surface stuff starts about here, about right there. So I'm going to go ahead and take this subtractive box, shift select the frame and group that. And we're going to make our raised area. So it's going to be up here, kind of tallish. We can always adjust this later. But I'm thinking it might be something like this, maybe just a little bit taller. Okay, so it looks like it starts. It does a little raise here, Let's grab another subtractive box. And it looks like it drops down before the shelf happens, and then it stays flat around that middle portion. So let me Control D this box, move it out of our way. I'm going to take this box and I'm just going to do a subtraction from about there to here. Let's pitch this. Bring it up. So it subtracts here. You know what? I'm going to Control Z this and make this a little bit longer. Pitch it. Move it into position. It's something like this, kind of pitches down. So I'm going to take this box, Shift Control the frame, and we're going to do a group so it subtracts that shape. I'm going to duplicate, Control Z, Control Z. We're going to duplicate this box, and this stays flat up until a bit past this frame. So it stays flat till about here. Yeah, that's about right. So I'm going to select both of these, group it, and now we've got this flat. And then we're going to take our box yet again, bring it in here. This does a step up. And then it stays tall all the way to the end. And now we need to do a little bit more subtraction on this because this piece looks to be almost as tall as that new lip, but it cuts in. I was going to do a separate tutorial on symmetrical subtractions, but this is kind of what I was going to do, is show you how I subtract from an object and then mirror and subtract from the opposite side. So that's what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to make this angled. We're going to cut in from here. We want to make sure that we cover that lip on both sides, looking good. So this is at an angle. So instead of having to do another box on this side to match that angle, all I'm going to do is copy this, arrow key this over, mirror it, make sure this lines up, and I'm going to select this, and we're going to group. And it's not quite exactly what I'm looking for, but I think it's close enough for our example. I'm going to shave. You know what? Let me show you how easy that is to adjust. So I'm going to take these again and ungroup it. I need this angle to be sharper, so I'm going to take one of these boxes off. I'm going to jump this angle. I'm going to stretch this box out out. Same process, Control D, arrow key this over. I'm going to take a plane here and just kind of slice off the top. And then I think I'll exaggerate its slope by decreasing the top and increasing it at the bottom. Bring this up to about here. Okay, that's close enough for me. I mean, this is not exact. I'm just giving you some basics. The rest of this is pretty basic stuff. We're going to subtract the ends of this box. That means actually that this guy lives down here at his base, connected here. And then from here, I'll probably just do a time lapse, because honestly, it looks like a collection of just tubes, basically tubes and cylinders rearranged and cut to shape. Let me take a pause right here and show you a little trick. So what I want to do is round off this section right here. So instead of it being a flat, a sharp angular edge here, I want to round it off. So I can do that by using a cylinder, one of these tubes actually. I'm going to cut this tube in half because I only want half of it. Just want a part of it. Alright, so I'm going to cut this tube in half, about the halfway point. It doesn't really make that big of a difference. Let's go ahead and group these two objects. I'm going to turn this into a hole. Then I'm going to bring it in here. I want the bottom to be flat, but I want this top to have an edge. So you can see how you can get creative when you need to. Oh, that's going to be nice. So yeah, you can just take a shape, manipulate it, chop it up, use it where it needs to be, and just get creative with your shape. So that's, you know what, that is good enough for me. So let's take that and group it. And just like that, we have a nice rounded, tapered, chamfered edge. Let's continue. Just real quick on time lapse with this piece. adding just a couple more details. I'm not planning on using this piece right away, but I'm sure I'll save it from my library so I can use it to populate other projects, like I was showing you in episode 7, how to use your existing library to populate new textures on walls, models, consoles. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Love to hear the feedback. Alright, so I'm going to just do this last little detail here. It looks like there's a couple of indentations. It's probably not completely accurate to this whole thing, but this looks great. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and group this whole thing. Make it all a single color. Let's bring it out here. Yeah. Not bad, huh? I mean, like, this is just basically demonstrating SVG vectors into extrusions and then modeling from there. So it's a lot of shortcuts. I have so enjoyed bringing this 8-part series to you. If this has helped you in any way, I'd love to hear it in the comment section. Make sure that you like and subscribe to see future content. And have a great day and continue modeling. This is Chris. Thanks for watching.